This season is packed with action and emotion. Let's recap everything from House of the Dragon Season 2. The story continues at the Wall, where Jace seeks an alliance with Cregan Stark on Rhaenyra's behalf. Although Stark must remain in the north to keep the Wall secure, he pledges 2,000 Stark soldiers to support her claim. On Dragonstone, Rhaenys returns exhausted after establishing a naval blockade in the gullet between Dragonstone and Driftmark. Daemon pushes her to help him eliminate Aemond and Vhagar in retaliation for Lucerys' death, but Rhaenys refuses to act without Rhaenyra's approval, knowing the pain of losing a child. Daemon condemns her for sparing Aegon and the Greens when she had the opportunity. In King's Landing, Aegon proposes launching a dragon-led assault against Rhaenyra. Otto advises restraint, and Alicent supports keeping Aegon away from the battlefield. Later, Aegon listens to the concerns of the city's residents. Though initially compassionate, Otto reminds him that ruling requires discipline. Among those seeking help is Hugh, a blacksmith forging massive anti-dragon scorpions. Facing shortages and struggling to support his family, Hugh requests aid. Despite Otto's objections, Aegon agrees to assist him. Soon after, Larys advises Aegon that replacing Otto as Hand of the King could help him establish an identity separate from Viserys. Elsewhere, Corlys mourns Lucerys while overseeing repairs to his damaged ship. He thanks Alan, the sailor who saved him, and is told the ship will soon be ready to return to the gullet. Unbeknownst to most, Alan is Corlys' illegitimate son. It gets revealed that Mysaria survived the brothel fire. Daemon discovers she was the White Worm and blames her for aiding Aegon's rise. Mysaria argues that she acted only for personal gain. In return for her freedom, Daemon asks for her help in arranging Aemond's death. Using Mysaria's contacts, Daemon recruits Blood, a city watchguard, and Cheese, a rat catcher, to infiltrate the Red Keep and kill Aemond. When they fail to locate him, they encounter Helaena and her twins. Believing that a life must answer for Lucerys' death, they kill Jaehaerys. Helaena escapes with Jaehaera and stumbles upon Alicent and Criston together in Alicent's chambers. The Red Keep thrown into chaos after Jaehaerys' murder. Devastated by the loss of his son, Aegon formally declares war against Rhaenyra. Investigating the breach, Aemond uncovers one of the coins used to pay the assassins. Realizing he was likely their intended victim, he feels even more responsible for Lucerys' death. Otto sees an opportunity to sway public opinion and arranges a grand funeral procession for Jaehaerys, hoping to paint Rhaenyra as a ruthless enemy. After being captured and tortured, Blood admits that Daemon hired him and another man whose identity he never knew. During the funeral march, heralds label Rhaenyra the Cruel, as the people mourn with Alicent and Helaena. The ordeal is especially difficult for Helaena, whose prophetic dreams and withdrawn nature isolate her from others. Following the confession, Aegon and Criston order every rat catcher in the city to be executed. Otto strongly objects, convinced the brutality will damage Aegon's image. Aegon dismisses Otto's concerns, insisting Criston has done more to avenge Jaehaerys. He removes Otto from office and names Criston as the new Hand of the King. On Dragonstone, Rhaenyra learns of Jaehaerys' death and the accusations directed at her. Suspecting Daemon immediately, she confronts him. Daemon admits that Aemond was his intended target, not the child. Even so, Rhaenyra loses faith in him and accuses him of exploiting her claim in pursuit of the throne he always wanted. Furious over recent events, Daemon departs for Harrenhal to secure additional allies. After hearing Daemon's accusations, Rhaenyra questions Mysaria about her involvement. She recognizes Mysaria as the woman Daemon once claimed to have married and conceived a child with. Although execution seems like the safer option, Mysaria argues that her experience and network still make her valuable. Acknowledging their shared opposition to the Hightowers and Daemon's impact on both their lives, Rhaenyra chooses to spare her and allows her to remain free. As Mysaria departs, she notices Eric approaching and realizes Criston has sent him to pose as his twin brother Eric in order to assassinate Rhaenyra. Eric reaches Rhaenyra's chambers while she sleeps, but Eric arrives before he can strike. The brothers engage in a deadly duel, ending with Eric killing Eric to defend his queen. Unable to live with what he has done, Eric takes his own life. In the Riverlands, a long-standing disagreement between House Bracken and House Blackwood over border markers erupts into a devastating conflict that leaves thousands dead. While the Brackens fight for Aegon, the Blackwoods remain loyal to Rhaenyra. Criston proposes securing control of the region by winning over the Brackens and taking Harrenhal, with Aemond expected to join. Aegon wants to join the campaign on Sunfire, but the council refuses. Before Criston leaves, Alicent sends her brother Gwaine with him. Gwaine is surprised by Criston's rise to Hand of the King. Criston then asks Alicent for a favor, and she gives him her handkerchief, which Gwaine notices and questions. Meanwhile, in a brothel in King's Landing, Ulf claims to be Balon's illegitimate son, making him related to Viserys and Daemon. Though unverified, his story suggests many Balon bastards may be living unnoticed in the capital. At Harrenhal, Daemon finds the castle mostly empty, with only a few members of House Strong remaining. Simon, the acting Castellan, pledges loyalty to Rhaenyra, as many in his house blame Larys for the fire that killed their family. During his stay, Daemon is troubled by visions of his past and future, and repeatedly encounters the mysterious Alice. Elsewhere, Rhaenys and Baela survey the Riverlands from Dragonback. Baela spots Criston's forces advancing toward Harrenhal and launches an attack. Criston and his men manage to evade her by retreating beneath the forest canopy, forcing Baela to abandon the pursuit. After hearing Baela's account, Rhaenyra's advisors warn that peace may no longer be achievable if Aegon's army is moving on Harrenhal. Despite this, Rhaenyra remains determined to avoid further war. Assisted by Mysaria, whose loyalty she has come to value after uncovering Eric's plot, Rhaenyra secretly enters King's Landing disguised as a septa. There, she meets Alicent inside the Great Sept and urges her to stop the bloodshed before it worsens. Their discussion shifts to Viserys, final words, and the prophecy Alicent believed concerned Aegon. Rhaenyra realizes Alicent misunderstood Viserys and wrongly assumed he had chosen Aegon as his successor. Nevertheless, Alicent insists that reconciliation is no longer possible and departs. Meanwhile, Criston captures Duskendale for Aegon. When Lord Darklyn refuses to submit, Criston has him executed. Not long afterward, Aemon sends Criston new orders, directing him to abandon the Harrenhal campaign and instead strike Rook's Rest near Blackwater Bay, the seat of House Staunton. Since the Stauntons support Rhaenyra, taking Rook's Rest would further isolate Dragonstone. When Aegon discovers that Criston and Aemon have been planning without him, he becomes frustrated, having preferred to focus on Harrenhal. Aemon argues that dragons alone will not decide the war. Feeling sidelined, Aegon confides in Alicent, who reassures him that restraint can sometimes be a ruler's greatest strength. Despite this advice, Aegon soon grows impatient with remaining on the sidelines and chooses to enter the conflict himself atop Sunfire. Back on Dragonstone, news arrives that Criston has begun his assault on Rook's Rest. Jace recommends sending a dragonrider to aid their allies. Rhaena offers to go herself to prove her resolve, but Jace asks to take her place. She refuses, prompting Rhaenys to volunteer instead. Criston launches his attack on Rook's Rest with 500 soldiers, igniting a fierce battle. Rhaenys enters the fight riding Meleys, unaware that Aemond and Vhagar are already waiting. When Aemond notices Aegon arriving on Sunfire, he hesitates. Rhaenys clashes with Aegon and Sunfire in the skies above the battlefield. Eventually, Aemond intervenes, but rather than protecting Aegon, he unleashes Dragonfire upon both Sunfire and Meleys, severely injuring Aegon and his dragon. Meleys and Vhagar engage in a savage aerial struggle high above the battlefield. Amid the destruction below, Criston is wounded when Vhagar crashes into the ground. Recovering quickly, Vhagar launches another attack and sinks her teeth into Meleys' neck while the dragons spiral through the sky. Before plummeting to the earth, Meleys shares one final glance with Rhaenys. Together, dragon and rider meet their end in battle. When Criston regains consciousness, he discovers that Meleys' fallen body has shattered part of the castle walls, securing victory for his troops. He later reaches the site where Sunfire crashed and finds Aemond already standing beside Aegon. Burned almost beyond recognition, Aegon clings to life near the remains of his dragon. Corlys, Rhaenyra, and Baela grieve the loss of Rhaenys. In King's Landing, Criston displays Meleys' severed head throughout the city, presenting Aegon as the Dragon Slayer. The badly burned Aegon is brought back to his chambers, where Grand Maester Orwyle works tirelessly to preserve his life. Alicent is heartbroken by her son's condition. Since Aegon can no longer rule, Aemon steps forward to govern as regent during his recovery. Seeking answers, Alicent questions Criston about the events at Rook's Rest and Aemon's involvement, but Criston refuses to reveal everything that occurred. During the following small council meeting, Alicent offers to act as regent until Aegon heals. The council rejects her proposal and appoints Aemond instead, believing that both his experience as a dragon rider and his position as a man make him the stronger candidate. Alicent protests, convinced that Aemond's impulsive nature makes him unsuitable, yet even Criston declines to support her. Soon afterward, Aemond removes Alicent from the council altogether. Meanwhile, Hugh and his family endure the same hunger affecting the rest of King's Landing. Despite Aegon's earlier promises, relief never comes. They attempt to flee the city, only for Aemond to shut the gates. Trapped inside, Hugh's ill daughter dies not long afterward. As support for Rhaenyra continues to weaken after the fall of Rook's Rest, Jace searches for new allies. At the Twins, he reaches an agreement with Lord Forrest Frey, offering the protection of dragons in exchange for allowing Cregan Stark's army passage into the Riverlands. Returning to Dragonstone, Jace finds Rhaenyra frustrated by her inability to take a larger role in the war. He reminds her that Vermithor and Silverwing remain riderless, and argues that securing new dragonriders could shift the balance of power. Rhaenyra insists that no suitable candidates remain, prompting Jace to suggest seeking out Targaryen bastards with enough Valyrian blood to claim the dragons. Eventually, Aegon awakens from his injuries, though he is still badly weakened and scarred by burns. During a private visit, Aemond asks whether he recalls anything from the battle. Aegon admits that he remembers nothing. Later, Larys visits Aegon and expresses sympathy for his suffering. Aegon's wounds are extensive, and the damage to his legs may leave him unable to walk again. Larys urges him not to surrender to despair, reminding him that his intellect may become his most valuable weapon. Rhaenyra's faction attempts to bond Seasmoke, the former dragon of Laenor, with Sir Steffon Darklyn, a distant Balon descendant. The attempt fails when Seasmoke rejects Steffon and burns him alive. At the same time, Aemond continues directing supplies toward the war effort and the dragons, leaving the people of King's Landing to suffer from worsening starvation. With Mysaria's assistance, Rhaenyra arranges for food to be distributed throughout King's Landing, hoping to win the favor of the hungry population and undermine Aemond's rule. Hugh manages to secure enough provisions for his family before Aemond's soldiers confiscate what remains. Elsewhere, Alicent and Helaena are praying inside the Great Sept when an angry mob turns against them. Although the Kingsguard attempts to escort them away, chaos erupts as objects are thrown and violence spreads through the crowd. The incident further damages support for the Greens. Meanwhile, Corlys, now serving as Rhaenyra's hand, invites Aelin to become the first mate aboard his ship. Aelin hesitates. Adam encourages his brother to accept the opportunity, but Aelin refuses to dwell on what might have been. Later, while fishing, Adam encounters Seasmoke. Frightened, he tries to escape, yet the dragon catches up to him. Rather than attacking, Seasmoke chooses Adam as his rider. Back on Dragonstone, Rhaenyra and Mysaria celebrate the success of their efforts and share an intimate moment. Their conversation is cut short when word arrives that Adam has bonded with Seasmoke. Rhaenyra speaks to Adam about his newly claimed dragon. Adam explains that Seasmoke chose him on its own. He declares his loyalty to Rhaenyra and asks only for the chance to serve her and train as a dragon rider. Satisfied with his answer, Rhaenyra welcomes him into her ranks. Soon after, Jace challenges Rhaenyra's plan to recruit more riders. He argues that arming Balon bastards with dragons could endanger the line of succession, especially given the rumors surrounding his own birth. Despite his objections, Rhaenyra insists there is no alternative. Mysaria then sends her agents throughout King's Landing to find people with Valyrian ancestry capable of bonding with dragons. Among those discovered are Hugh and Ulf. Hugh trusts his mother's claims that he carries Valyrian blood, while Ulf reluctantly agrees to participate. Together with many other candidates, they journey to Dragonstone. Before the attempt begins, Rhaenyra warns them that death is likely for many, though success could help end the war and protect their loved ones. The candidates are brought before Vermithor, but the dragon burns a large number of them alive. While panic spreads through the crowd, Hugh stands his ground and ultimately earns Vermithor's acceptance. Elsewhere, Ulf accidentally comes across Silverwing while trying to get away. Although terrified, he is unexpectedly chosen as her rider. As Aegon slowly recovers, Larys becomes one of the few people he trusts. He suggests escaping to Braavos, where wealth tied to Harrenhal can sustain them until the conflict ends. Aegon initially rejects the idea, but Larys convinces him that he may one day return and reclaim the throne from Aemond. Tylan continues seeking support from the Triarchy. They agree to join the Greens on two conditions: the return of the Stepstones and Tylan's victory over Admiral Shirako. After defeating Shirako, Tylan secures their alliance. Meanwhile, Corlys' repaired ship is finally ready to sail. Hoping to mend their relationship, Corlys reaches out to Aelin. Aelin refuses, bitter that Corlys ignored him and Adam for years, and only acknowledged them after losing his true-born children. Back on Dragonstone, Jace is introduced to the new dragonriders and immediately finds himself at odds with them, particularly Ulf, who treats his new role far too casually. That evening, Rhaenyra gathers her supporters and urges them to take advantage of their current strength. Some are uneasy about more killing and the prospect of facing Vhagar, but Jace reminds them that retreat is no longer possible. Not long after, a message arrives from Simon at Harrenhal. In response, Rhaenyra travels to Harrenhal, accompanied by Adam. While there, Alas guides Daemon to a weirwood tree. Through a series of visions involving the White Walkers and Daenerys, Daemon comes to understand that his destiny is not to rule, but to play a role in protecting the future. When Rhaenyra reaches Harrenhal, Daemon warns her that even greater threats are coming and admits that Viserys was right to choose her as his heir. He bends the knee before her, and his army follows. At last, Rhaenyra places her trust in him again. After learning that Rhaenyra has gained 3 new dragonriders, Aemond responds by burning Sharp Point, whose ruling house supports her cause. He later asks Helaena to ride Dreamfire and fight beside him, but she refuses. Helaena reveals that she knows Aemond tried to kill Aegon, and describes a vision where Aegon sits on a wooden throne while Aemond lies dead. After returning to Dragonstone, Rhaenyra receives an unexpected guest, Alicent. Worn down by the conflict, Alicent offers to hand over King's Landing in exchange for protection for herself and her family. At first, Rhaenyra can hardly believe the offer. Alicent admits that Rhaenyra is likely to win and says too much blood has already been spilled. Even so, Rhaenyra agrees only on the condition that Aegon must die. Though devastated, Alicent silently accepts. Before leaving, Alicent reveals that the gates of King's Landing will be opened in 3 days, giving Rhaenyra a clear path to take the city. The season ends with armies across Westeros preparing for the coming war. Otto remains locked in a prison cell, while Aegon and Larys set sail for Braavos. With battle drawing closer, the future of the Seven Kingdoms hangs in the balance. If you want more recaps like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know what anime you want to see next.